I was born ready.
I'll introduce you. For many of you, you know who this guy is. Hey, Jim.
Hey, how are you?
There's a handout right there if you would like it. This is Scott Rektenwald. He's a good friend of mine. He is youth minister out in Idalou. Are you youth and family out in Idalou?
I am the opposite of Matt, where he preaches, and I just do everything on top of it. I'm the building setup guy, announcements guy, technology guy.
So, but Scott's been in youth ministry for many, many years. He has a lot of good insight, a lot of good things to say. I'm really excited you guys decided to join us and hear what Scott has to say today. The first session this morning will be seeing the need for spiritual guides for teens. And I'm really excited about that. So I'm going to pray for Scott for our sessions today together, and then I'll turn it over to Scott, and we'll go from there. God, you are good. God, we're thankful for just your love. We're thankful for the cool breeze outside, the fall that has finally hit. God, right now we're thankful for the people in this room, our hearts for youth, for serving in your kingdom in this way. We're thankful for Scott, for his great ability to lead youth, to love on youth. And God, we're just grateful that you've given us some words to say today, and we just pray that we could take them to affect our own ministries that we're involved in. So God, use us in this room, continue to guide us, continue to direct us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Stephen. We are being recorded, so hopefully I won't be too embarrassing, as I frequently am. I want this to be as casual as possible. And I'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second. I want this to be more of a discussion-based and be able to just talk about how we can possibly minister and teach more effectively towards our teenagers and with our teenagers. Let me rephrase that. Doing ministry with our teenagers. So reasons why you might have come to this class. Maybe you had pity on me because you knew me. Maybe you were like Stephen and told you had to be here today. Maybe you found yourself at the wrong class as I was introducing it. Trust me, I've done that before, so you can exit any time. Maybe you found this room and realized that this had a lot of room left, as obviously I predicted this like 5 days ago when I wrote that. Maybe you thought this is where the free coffee is, sadly. I think there's a water container outside over there, so if you need water, but no coffee in here. Maybe you thought this is where lunch was going to be and you just showed up early. Maybe you thought this is where the child care room was. I don't know. So you could have brought your kids here. I don't know if you did. But hopefully you find yourself more in here for one of these reasons. Maybe you find yourself here because you want to equip yourself to be a better Bible class teacher, to work with teens better. Notice that with. It's what I tried to put in here as much as possible. Maybe you find yourself here because you want to be a better Bible class teacher for teens, to equip yourself more. You find yourself here because you are a youth leader, and maybe you're doing this full time. Maybe you're a volunteer that's been blessed with the opportunity to help lead these students and families. I thought I'd give you a little history about myself. A lot of you I've known for a number of years, but my biggest thing that I could tell you is I never planned to be a minister at all, let alone a youth minister. It was never, ever my plan. I have been doing this for 17 and a half years, but I never was planning to be a youth minister. I went the education route, like Luke over here, and I was going to be elementary education. I loved working with little kids. That is until I did my very first bulletin board, and I realized this was not the thing that I should be doing for the rest of my life. But I still loved kids. And I was like, what can I do to do this effectively? Because I wanted to be a mentor. In fact, even at one point, we went on a mission trip to New York City. And I was like, this is what I want to do, because I want to go. And we went to the lowest income school in all of New York City. And I was like, man, this is where I need to be. Your classrooms, this would have been like 3 classrooms in one. And you would have fed 30 kids. So it would have been 90 kids in here joined in together. You went through 2 different metal detectors. And I told the teacher that I was observing, I said, this is where I need to be. And she said, don't do it. And I said, why? She said, because you're just going to be a security guard if you got hired here. And that made me sad for those kids, sad for her that she felt that way even. But I realized at that point, I need to do something more with my life. And so I went and I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to be a youth intern, see how this works out. And I went and was a youth intern with Paul Hodnett, actually, who was a Green Line youth minister for quite a number of years. And I was like, hey, if he can do it, I can be able to do this as well. And so I finished my education degree, did multiple different internships, and then I kind of was a strike every single time that you could get. We were talking about this earlier. Every single strike that you could possibly get, I had. I wasn't married, I didn't have any experience, and I didn't have a degree. So I never planned to do this. And I also didn't plan to be doing this right now. I had an exit plan. I had an exit plan. Once my son got into youth group, I was out. That was always my exit plan. But God had different plans with me, and now I'm in Idalou, and I love what I do. 18 full years. I still love what I do. And I'm going to share that passion with you today. Like I said, I worked at 3 different churches. I worked at 21st Street Church of Christ in Clovis with about 300 members, and our youth group grew to about 60 to 70 kids per week. Sunset here in town in Lubbock, 1,300 weekly attendance with about 130 kids. And now in Idalou with 220 usually weekly attendance, about 30 to 40 students. We have half of our church is under the age of 18 as far as our weekly attendance. Just because my wife is the children's minister, I'm the youth minister, and so we're able to do a lot of things together and help families along the way. So that's the reason why I'm here today. Why are you here today? So that's the very first question. Like I said, this is a discussion base. Not just me up here lecturing. So why are you here today? Who wants to be the guinea pig?
To be honest, I also was not going to come to Empower this year. Not that I had a bad experience, I just have a lot going on this time of the year. Yeah. But looking at the class subjects, something I really want to promote, a lot of the research, a lot of the literature shows you want a long-term, sustainable ministry with young people. Get the adults and your volunteers caring about your ministry, caring about your young people, getting plugged in on a regular basis. So I'm always looking for new ideas on how to do that effectively. So I loved seeing the subject matter and seeing you were just speaking.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk family ministry in the second session. Third session, we're going to talk the more getting volunteers. And we switched up the fourth session a little bit, but if we get stuck on that topic, that's what's great. We'll just keep on going with that. Okay, what else? Why are you here today?
I have 2 sons who are pretty new to the youth group, and we're going to be in this road for 15 years, because I have 4 kids.
With you, yeah.
So, just better ways to have conversations with this age group. That's something that, I've done, helped in the children's ministry, but when you get to this age, it's different. And so
absolutely.
I am really hoping to gain some insight on how to communicate with this age group. So.
All right, next. Why are you here?
Yeah, I'm the same thing. Learn to communicate better. I don't have kids in the youth group. I got grandkids, a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And some have gone through and in the college group, but it's there's too many young people that are walking away and abandoning their faith, which when I was in South Plains, my wife and I worked with Trent Robertson over there. You probably know Trent. He's doing something else now. But we were very involved in the youth group there and invested in their lives. Haven't done that as much here, but probably need to get back to doing that, and just want to find out the best way to do that other than Stephen getting in the headlock. No, it's something that's very, very important to me. And it goes to an old business principle that I used for years. And I know business and church don't necessarily go together, but if you don't plan for your future, you don't have one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the reason why I'm here.
I'm here just to learn whatever I can.
There you go. That works.
I woke up this morning, I felt sorry for you.
Stephen and I had a backup plan. If no one showed up to class, we were just going to have coffee together and just sit here and just watch the football game at 11. We had a good plan. I mean, so here's the thing. Whenever asked to do this, so first off, when a youth minister gets asked to do something in March, we're like, oh yeah, nothing's on the schedule. And of course, time went on. My schedule got more and more full, and I'm like, man, why did I agree to this right now? But I love being able to share wisdom and being able to help anyone I can. So I got asked to do it in March. And then in June, Bergen, spiritual life minister, is that his title here? He reached out to me and said, all right, what's your topics? And I was like, first off, you don't email a youth minister in June, because chances are we're not going to actually reply to you. And after 4 weeks of not replying, he messaged me 2 more times and said, I really need your topics. And I was like, okay, first off, we don't plan 4 months out in advance as far as topics that we're usually going to cover, and we rarely stick to those topics 4 months out. So I've tried my best today to actually do that. But here's my thing. Here's my rule when I go speak at a conference of any kind. If we get sidetracked with another topic and we get focused on something that we need to focus on, that's God working through the situation. Because I want to have open conversations. That's the reason why I like sitting at a table, I like sitting on a stool, because I want this to be a conversation. I want us to be on the same playing field, to be able to have conversations about our youth. And if I have this whole entire folder is filled with the stuff that I'm going to talk about today. And Matt James asked me how many PowerPoint slides. What did I say? 240 something PowerPoint slides. I do way too many transitions way too quickly. And we'll talk about that in the 4th lesson. But yet again, I want to be able to help you. I want to be able to talk with you about what you need, not necessarily what I felt like you needed 4 months ago. So when I say I'm going to stick to those 4 topics, chances are probably not. One time I went to this conference and it was in Artesia and I was speaking, and it was a 6-hour conference. It was way too long, but it was way too short at the same time, because I got up there, I did my first 30 minutes and I was like, hey, do y'all have any questions? And immediately there was 5 of us in that first class, kind of like this. By the end of the day we had 27 coming, because they wanted to just have an open conversation about our youth ministry and about helping kids grow in their faith. So yet again, if we need to do that, we'll do that. We'll stop whatever's going on. I can use this stuff at a later date. That's not a big deal. So today's schedule, as you can kind of see on there, there is one thing that changed. That's a mess up right there. It's not 12:45 and 12:45. So this is now the 3rd session. It kind of combined the 3rd and 4th session together. And then this one is now helping cultivate lessons that students will remember. And so that's something that I have a passion for, and so I wanted to share that with you. So after all that super long introduction, we finally get to session 1. But I asked this question to start off with. Yet again, this is a discussion based, not a lecture based. What do you believe is the biggest need that teenagers face today? The biggest need. Not the biggest issue they're going through, the biggest need they have.
They need real relationships.
Absolutely.
Diverse community.
Mm-hmm. What else?
To have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
They need to be seen and be heard and know that they matter.
Yes. I think so many fall into that category, just falling through the cracks, and to find out ways that they have a purpose in life. What else?
Just need a guide.
Mm-hmm. It's like y'all looked at my first session title and realized the direction we're going through with this. And I would love to tell you, it would be a great goal for me to say, all right, here's every single way that you can get a teenager to listen, to be the perfect attendee of your class and the perfect attendee of your youth group, and to be able to learn and grow and how to make sure that they're there every single week. But I can't. I can't tell you there's no perfect formula ever for that to happen, because each person is completely different than the next. What they're going through, why they're not there, what's going on at home. So you come to the why. Why? Why can't we be able to tell you this? Because here's the real reason. Because there's a lot of things that are currently affecting teenagers. There's a lot of pieces that we have to find how we can minister to that student effectively and do ministry in life with, to be able to help them along the way. And so I toyed around with a lot of different topics and what to be able to talk about, but the reality is, until we can do this why, we can't ever focus on this up here. Because we have to first take care of this before we can do this. So, this was that second part of the question right there. Kind of sounds like the similar question, but it's not. What do you think the biggest thing that affects teenagers? What do you think is affecting our teenagers right now?
I think they're just being drowned by culture in a way that previous generations haven't, mainly due to smartphones and social media.
Yeah.
And tied to that, they're being drowned with, you instantly know around the world that a city has been bombed in about 5 seconds. You instantly know this has happened, and so it's, even 20s and 30-year-olds are drowned in that, where it's just like, there's no future, there's no hope, because this is all happening, and it's in an instant, they know that.
Yeah, and there's even, like, you talked about the alerts and stuff like that. You think about the alert that we got each on our phones and technology this week. They're immediately thinking, what alert am I going to get to this now? And there's a fear that is cultivated in it. And they want to turn it off because they don't want to worry about that. But the reality is that you want to know about it, and we're inundated with it. What else?
Well, the truth is, those things have been happening all the time.
Right.
It's just now you have so much information so fast. And yeah, they're on their phones, and I realize I'm the old guy in the room. I get that. But my hair used to be different color. But people, and I've heard people say, we're the most connected generation's ever been. I don't think so, and I never thought so. We're the most disconnected.
Yeah.
Because that flood of information, to me, it forces people into a sense of isolation and loneliness. And I think teens, even though you see them interact with each other, that's just what they want you to see.
Right.
When the lights go off or they're alone, I think there's a real sense of loneliness that kids are facing today. They don't know how to combat that.
I think that's what we use the social media for, though, is to be able to look, not like the look at me sort of thing, but to look at other people, to feel that connection, even though there's not really a connection, a deep connection.
Yeah, but nobody knows how to communicate with each other.
Right now.
They just know how to go somewhere and text you. Unlike you, there is no face-to-face conversation the way that we're talking right now. That's a skill they don't have.
Yeah.
Well, I want to add on to that anxiety that all of that causes. That again, that instant stuff, the alerts, like you said. Their ability to, even in school, just to log in and see their grade and things like that, where it causes so much anxiety. They see different situations happening with adults, and don't understand the context, and so it creates anxiety.
Yeah, I think absolutely. There's a lot of anxiety and pressures that are going on.
For just trying to put it under a big umbrella, I feel like the biggest thing affecting teens is despair. Like just being overwhelmed with nowhere to go with it. Like they try different things, right? But like whether we're talking about anxiety, depression, mental stuff, or we're talking about community stuff. They have a friend group, but then to put it through the filter of social media, where do they go for hope? And so I just feel like one thing that's really hugely affecting teens is despair.
To me, before you can ever plan your very first lesson, before you can ever step foot in the classroom, you have to know the audience that you're speaking to. You have to be knowing what's going on. Going to go speak at Crosbyton is going to be different than even Idalou. And Idalou is going to be different than Greenlawn. It's like every single place is completely different. Your culture at Oldham Lane is different than your culture at Idlewood. And so knowing what's going on is so important. It's the same thing, knowing what teenagers are going through, knowing and thinking through that before you even write your first lesson, write your first word. That's important. So let's do that. Let's know our audience. There's a lot of just different statistics that are out there. Things that teens are going through. It's hard. We're still not seeing the full effects of what was going on after COVID. So when you see numbers like this is actually still predating COVID because we can actually still look at those numbers. And so the issue is, what is going to be those effects as they enter into they're now those who, for example, my son was in 2nd grade whenever COVID hit. Now he's in 6th grade. So how is he being affected by that? We still don't know the full ramifications of everything that went on that year. But here's some numbers that you need to look at before you even plan that very first lesson. Currently, there are approximately 42 million early to mid-adolescents in the United States alone. That is those youth that fall between that 10 to 19 years of age. That makes roughly 12.9% of the current population of the United States. The current percent of the population that is under the age of 19 is 25%. 52% of the adolescents that are 10 to 19 years of age are low income or currently living in poverty. I don't know, that's kind of astounding to me. I think we see sometimes the best of in churches. That we forget there's that 52%. And you think about that. So this is something Matt said in a meeting a few weeks ago, is your church matching what's going on around your church building? Just something to think about. In the next 24 hours, here's what you're going to see amongst mid-adolescents. 1,439 teens will attempt suicide. More teens, and that number is actually on the decline a little bit right now. More teens and young adults will die from suicide than from heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, pneumonia, the flu, cancer, and lung disease combined. In the next 24 hours, 2,795 teenage girls will become pregnant. 15,056 teens will use drugs for the very first time. 3,506 teenagers will run away from home. 2 teenagers will be murdered. And 9 teens will die in a car crash. The percentage of 12th graders who reported vaping in their lifetime rose to 42.5%. 50% of all mental illness begins by age 14, and 75% begins by the age of 24. 24.7 million children do not have their biological father at home. Only 63% of American children grow up with both biological parents. 41% of marriages end in divorce. People from the church are just as likely to go through a divorce at 39%. The last CDC report shows these statistics right here. 14% of teens and children suffer with ADHD. This is those confirmed cases, not the ones that we don't know about. 1 out of every 50 adolescents are diagnosed with autism. This compares to just 20 years ago that it was 1 out of 150. So that number's on the rise. 1 out of every 10 adolescents struggle with anxiety, as Jim said. 3% of teenage population suffer with depression. 85% struggle with low self-worth. 3% of teenagers are reported to having some sort of eating disorder. 1 out of every 5 young people will suffer with some sort of mental illness. There's just a little bit more. see a student struggling to listen in class, when you see a student that is struggling, think about what's going on. And you see Johnny, I'm just using random names, but these are real situations. A friend just died in a car wreck. They wonder if God is even there. They struggle with self-worth, and their girlfriend just broke up with them. And you wonder why they're not in class. Maddie, parents just got divorced. Mom dating a guy that's living with them. Parents have addictions and don't have any money to pay their electricity bill. Yet again, these are both two teens that I'm working with right now, and this is what's going on. So whenever we see them struggling in class, or we see them not showing up, there's a name, there's a face to those statistics. Which of those statistics scares you the most? All that stuff you just saw up there, what scares you the most?
I think right now, it's mainly because I'm dealing with it with 3 or 4 students that I know of right now, is the suicidal rate. My wife and I are currently walking with multiple of our students through that world, and it's depressing on your end as the person, loving on them and trying to see that they have worth.
Right. Which of those statistics scares you the most?
I agree with him, because if you miss it, and even if you don't miss it, they go through with it, and that's it for them. You don't have any more time to try to work with them.
Another thing, I was dealing with a teen just a few years ago that committed suicide. There was, to us, to the naked eye, just looking at them, there was no signs beforehand. And it just happened. They decided what they were dealing with, they could not overcome anymore. Their family didn't know, their friends didn't know. They started trying to look at signs before that, and they're like, we didn't see anything. I ministered to them, I didn't see anything. And it's like, it can come out of anywhere. We live in this world where if anything blows up on us, it's not worth it anymore. Kind of on that same note, which one makes you feel the most emotion? When you're looking at one of those teens in your class, which one do you hate to see the most?
The 16, because my kids have struggled with it.
Yeah,
And just the personal connection I have to it.
Yeah. It's just, by the time they're 18, there's just so many that have been acclimated to it.
Yep.
It's a part of their life. They feel like that they are, especially with Snapchat, it can be hidden so easily. I had to talk with a teen at one point that he was sexting an underage minor. And I had to report it because it was such a horrible thing. Like, they didn't think anything about it. That's what's sad. What makes you feel the most emotion?
I think recently in my youth group, I've been counseling some of our students who their parents have gone through divorce, and knowing their parents before, it was just like everything. They were trying to keep things on track, trying to keep regular church attendance, trying to keep them involved in school, and then divorce just makes the parents do crazy things to each other because it's just such a strange situation. And then it's so odd talking to the parents because they always are like, my kid's resilient, my kid is not being affected by this. And I'm like, I'm dealing with so much fallout because of what y'all are doing, and this kid is good at hiding it from you, and that's why you think that, but your kid is very affected by this. And so just kind of helping those kids still have self-worth, not backslide into some of these self-harming identities because they don't feel like they have any value at home anymore because they can't choose which home. And it's just a mess most of the time.
While these numbers are scary, that's still probably, for most of us, probably not the scariest number because we're working in the trenches. And it's this number right here, the 65% rule. It depends on which survey you look at. I've seen as low as 50, I've seen as high as 75, depending on which denomination you're talking about, that they're just walking away from church. Yet again, that doesn't mean that they're walking away from God. They're done with the church. They're tired of the church. They're tired of the church not helping. They're tired of the church not doing anything about it. And they're struggling with those numbers, and they just see the church just sitting by and just saying like, okay, well, they're just going to preach anymore. They're not going to fix these situations. This is our retreat photo from last year. Let's put an image to that number. This is our retreat this past fall. What happens when you take out 60% of the people? This one hurts me the most right now. That was the boy from with Harold that was killed in the car accident, the one right here. And the sad thing is that I know all those right there, they're struggling with it. And very easily, that could send them away from God. It's a hard thing whenever you see the image, something like this. Those were real people. Real situations. Real people that we care about. Some of you, this is your kids. It could be your siblings, your next door neighbor, your nephew or niece, grandchildren. When it's not just a number anymore, it changes it. It changes the situation.
Yeah, Scott, before you go on, I want to ask you a question. We know the numbers, and I heard you say they're not walking away from God as much as they're walking away from church.
Right.
I just want to flip that around because I've been in church leadership for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I want to ask you, how does that impact you when you know that those kids that you invested in, you spend time with, are walking away?
That I always take that personal, especially if it's like they're in my youth group context or into college even. I take it a hit personally sometimes. I remember I said the dumbest thing ever whenever I was first starting into ministry. A girl was saying, I'm not coming back to your church. I don't want to go to any church. I'm tired of this. Few choice words besides that. Personally attacking me. And I said, no, I'll leave. You don't leave. And that was my first ministry mistake. It was like 2 months after I started. Because I took it so personal. Now I don't take it personal as much. And what I do, for example, I have one of our mentors in life, their son has walked away from the faith. He's atheist through and through, and we sat down and had lunch. He had been a part of our youth group, one of our biggest leaders in the youth group. Get up and do talks galore. And I sat down with him. Multiple people had tried to talk him out of this. And I said, I'm not going to try to talk you out of this. I want you to know that I still love you. I love you for who you are, not based on this. And that's my goal with him, long-term goal, is that if I can keep on working with him into his adult years, that he will still see the love of Christ in me. So now I don't take it personal. I see it as more of a, this is an opportunity for me to continue this ministry because they're still an adolescent in their faith and they're struggling with that. I don't know if that's the answer.
Well, it's not my answer, sir.
I know, right?
And Stephen will tell you, I can ask good questions.
Yeah.
Just make sure he feeds you his brisket first.
But where do you go for your rejuvenation? Where do you go? Because you said you don't take it personal. I know that you do.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But if you do church long enough, you go from being shocked about things to just being disappointed because you know what can happen.
Right.
But where do you go? Do you have people in your life? How do you handle that stress, that anxiety that comes to you and is transferred back to you?
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. This is something I do struggle with because I'm able to talk with my peers and just like talk about it and just say, not yet again bringing up students' names, but just being able to just talk and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Matt's one that I can call. We live right down the road from each other, and we're able to just talk and have a conversation about it and talk through those situations because they have guidance. I mean, even though we're 6 months apart, 9 months, something like that, that he is wise beyond his years in that. And then I can be able to talk to other people. For example, like I really encourage you to find a connection of people to be able to talk to because you do take it personal. No matter how much I say that it's not.
Yeah,
it is. And so it is a struggle. A lot of times, luckily, that 65% I see more after. I'm more thinking my general range in my churches that I work with is more like the 30 to 40% number of those graduating from their faith after they graduate from high school or into their first or 2 years of college or something like that. But it still leads to that 65%.
That's still a big number.
That's still a big number. Yes, and when I was writing this lesson out and I was thinking like, I began to think of those numbers. I began to think of students that I know that have walked away from their faith. Students that I've known that have walked away from their faith. Some have even committed suicide. Some died I had one ex-student that died in a shooting last year. They completely, drugs had taken over their life. They didn't believe in God anymore. They didn't go to church anymore. I would say the 30-40% is still high. It's probably more like 20 to 30%. I'm an over-exaggerator sometimes, but it's still a hard number to be able to see because you've invested so much time and effort. Even if you're just teaching Bible class, you've invested so much time and effort into them, and you hate to see that happen.
That, by the way, we have a minute left in this session time. And so
I'm only on slide 33 of 61 more
You put them
left.
on automatic transition at 45 seconds if you wanted to get through them all. I gave you advice.
I'm gonna let you.
The next thing starts at 10, so if you want to take a minute or two to maybe
Okay,
wrap up
let's
the session.
wrap up on this thought, but yeah.
How much of this fallout is really families versus the kids?
Absolutely,
getting
it's a product of what they're going through in their home, and I think we see that more and more. I know Matt probably has more of this in Crosbyton. We see probably less of it, probably at Green Lawn, and I could be wrong, probably less at Oldham Lane, of families that used to just more in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, of kids just being dropped off at churches. Doesn't exist quite as much anymore. It depends on your context. I know Matt deals with it a little bit more, but he also feeds the people in his community every single week as well, and being able to have that in the community. But I think it's still coming with what's going on in the homes. But yet again, that one that I said that I just had a conversation with, and just told him I love him no matter what he believes. Really, really good family. It's not that he had a hard, rough life. And one of his brothers is a minister, and one of them's a very devout Christian, and then you have him. And so it's not a specific situation. So that's what I want you to do. As we walk away today, I want you to be thinking about those kids. Think about those kids, and think of that name, and why you do what you do. And before you even teach a lesson, think about your audience. Think about the people that are being affected by what you're fixing to say, by who you're fixing to talk to. And I encourage you to think about that and pray about those names as you go about your day-to-day. All right, we'll start more on time, and maybe I can get through 10 more of my 61 slides per time. But I'm going to pray over you. I want to stop And I want us to pray. We're going to take a minute or two, and I want you to just think about those names of that 65% in your life. Father God, we each know people in our lives that have walked away from going to church. Some have walked away from you altogether. Lord, I pray for them. I pray that we could be able to think of those people, remember those people. Lord, I pray for the students that we all work with on a daily basis. I pray for them. I pray for their situations that they're going through. I pray for everything that's going on. Lord, I ask you to bless them in only ways that you can. Give them peace. Give them comfort. Give them hope. Lord, I ask you to be with each one of these students. Be with each one of us, Lord, that we are better stewards of your word and passing that on to them as well. Be with us in all the ways that you can. You should never pray together as one family. Amen.